Hello YouTube, how's everyone doing? It's Professional here. So today I got a Dead Rising video for you guys discussing the censorship controversy. And if you guys like my other Dead Rising videos, just know that I have two more lore videos coming up. I should have one, smaller lore video on Carlito coming up, this weekend. And then next week I'll have a video, basically explaining the moral lesson in Dead Rising. What the game is trying to tell you, and what that quote at the end of the game means when it says, "And yet he complained that his belly was not yet full." I have a really good video, explaining, the moral lesson in the game, and just me analyzing a lot of the stuff that happened in the storyline. But on today's video, I wanted to talk about the censorship controversy. A lot of people have basically asked me to, make a video talking about this, giving my thoughts on it. And I will, show all the censorship in here. If there's any kind of censorship that I missed, let me know. But I think I pretty much got it all, from the trophies and achievements to the Larry scene to the Kent scene to the Cliff scene. I think I've pretty much gotten all of these censorship moments. But anyways, what is censored exactly? So if you're unfamiliar with the Dead Rising series, you might have seen a lot of people in my comment section basically, complaining about the censorship. And I did a poll basically asking you guys today, what you think of this. Like, do you think this censorship was like bad or good? Like, do you care? And I gave it three options, which I tried to give as many options as I could think of, like the responses that people would say. And, it was like about 10% said that, about 10% of people said that that the censorship does not bother them. I think it was like close to 15% of people said that that they're not going to play the game because of it. And then like the rest of it was like more than 70% of people had basically said that while the censorship is annoying, they still generally enjoyed the game, which is my position. If you want to know what my position is option 3 on this poll. So I agree with the majority of my audience on this, that I think the censorship was stupid, but I still overall enjoyed the game. And the Dead Rising remake is one of the best remakes I played. If it was not for the censorship, if the censorship is literally the only bad thing that I've encountered in this game, like everything else was better in this game. Like the gameplay was better, the fact that you could skip time, the the map was better, the icons were better. Survivors would each have like their own special weapon that would be better for them. Food, survivors would point stuff out to you. The notebook would detail all the PP stickers in the game. It was survivors were a lot smarter. AI was a lot smarter. They had a step at the end, like instead of the step they had that single step they had numerous steps, and it was easier to get survivors in the safe room. And when I played through the game, I did not encounter any kind of glitches. There was no glitch that I really encountered. There was only really one annoying glitch I encountered, and it was when I was trying to get the gun shop survivors back to the safe room. And I walked in, they said stop, and then I came back and they're supposed to stop shooting, and they started shooting me. And that was about it. That was the only glitch that I encountered. So for a lot of other remakes, a lot of glitches, a lot of game-breaking issues, but this game, just runs way better graphically and just so many more features than the original. So if it was not for the censorship, I would have given this game, a perfect score, 10 out of 10. But because of the censorship, I have to give the game an 8 out of 10. That's just my perspective on it. The only other thing I guess I was pissed about was that there was no co-op. I think that the game could have definitely done co-op. I think it could have, even though the original didn't have it. Dead Rising 2 had, so I think Dead Rising 1 Remake could have had co-op in it. I think you guys can agree with me on that. But that's basically it. My only two complaints in the entire game were the censorship and, lack of co-op. If they had that both, the game I would have given easily 100%. But anyways, enough of me talking about this. That was basically giving my thoughts at the start of it here. Let's break down the censorship by each and talk about exactly what the controversy is. So let's start off with Larry here. Okay, now let's talk about these, censorship controversies one by one. And the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to talk about Larry, which Larry is the number one, censorship, thing that people are talking about with this remake. So whenever people are talking about the censorship, that's the first thing that comes to people's minds, is Larry just being changed as an entire character. Now, about Larry. Larry is the last psychopath that you encounter in 72 hours mode. You have to kill him or to save Carlito from being put in the meat grinder machine. And he's also the second to last psychopath in the entire game. The last psychopath is Brock, that you fight in overtime mode. But then behind him is actually Larry at the end of 72 hours mode. Now, about Larry is, in the original, in the 2006 version, Larry was a really big Asian man, and it's implied that he's a foreigner because of his accent. Now, Larry is actually either from China or Taiwan. I'm not sure on where he is from, but his name seems to suggest, at least from what people on the Dead Rising wiki have said, his last name, the way it's spelled, Chiang is apparently a Taiwanese last name. I don't know that much about last names, so if you guys know anything more about that in the comments, let me know if Larry's last name is Taiwanese. But that also might be part of the controversy. And the tattoo that's actually on the back of his neck, I believe that's the Chinese character for meat. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. But anyways, about Larry is also really unsanitary. He's really dirty in the original. He's not wearing any kind of gloves. He's a ripped shirt, and on top of that, he's also missing a lot of teeth. Now in the remake, Larry is not a foreigner. He's an American. He appears to be white in the remake also, and they gave him a butcher's uniform. So he has like an entire butcher's uniform. Now he has, gloves on. He still has blood on him, but it's on his butcher's uniform. So let me actually show you guys both cutscenes. I'm going to show you guys from my 2020 playthrough, from my playthrough from 4 years ago. And then I'll show you the, and I'll also show you the exact scene with Larry from the remake.
A customer.
Frank's seen enough crazy people.
There. I mean, that meat?
Oh, this is good meat, huh? I just got it in here. It's fresh. You just wait right there, sir. In a moment, you can try the best ground meat you've ever tasted.
Whoa, ground? Wait a minute, listen. I had something else in mind.
Zombies are no good. I can't serve my customers spoiled meat like that. I have a reputation to uphold. Trust me, I'm a butcher. I've got the best meat in town.
That has to be the creepiest line ever. Trust me, I'm a butcher.
A customer!
That guy over there, that meat,
Oh! This is good meat, huh? I just got it in here. It's fresh. You just wait right there, sir. In a moment, you can try the best ground meat you've ever tasted.
Whoa, ground? Wait a minute, listen, I had something else in mind.
Zombies are no good. I can't serve my customers spoiled meat like that. I have a reputation to uphold. Trust me, I'm a butcher. I've got the best meat in town.
Okay, so now about Larry. What do I think about this exactly? What will I say about this? I don't think that there was anything offensive about Larry, actually. If Larry was, white guy in the original in the 2006 game, I would have seen him the exact same way. I don't think that it was anything offensive towards Asians. That's just my opinion. I'm not, I'm not East Asian. I am not, I'm not Chinese. I'm not Taiwanese. So I cannot say 100%. And I've seen comments on my channel asking, my viewers asking you guys if you guys are Chinese or Taiwanese, if Larry, the original Larry, offends you. And the majority of comments that I saw, people said that Larry did not offend them if they were Chinese or Taiwanese. However, though, I did see one comment from one guy, and I don't know if he was Chinese or Taiwanese, but he did say that the original version of Larry did offend him. Now, me personally, like I said, this is my opinion on this. I don't think there was anything offensive about Larry. If Larry was a white guy in the 2006 game, was also big, missing teeth, and unsanitary, I would see him the exact same way. I never looked at Larry's race when I saw him in like 2006. I just basically saw like a scary, crazy, psychotic butcher that just snapped during the the zombie apocalypse. That's basically what I thought of Larry. But about Larry, what I will say is that them making him an American in the remake kind of ruined part of the story here. And the reason it did was because Carlito really hated Americans, and he hated the U.S. government for what they did to Santa Cabeza with these, experiments, how they were experimenting on cattle in order to increase meat production so that the U.S. government could sell more meat to the American consumer. But they were using the wasps in putting them inside cattle to try to basically fatten them up, but it turned the cattle into zombies and then infected Santa Cabeza, and basically that's where the zombies came from. Now, the reason that in the original I personally think that the scene is better is because, think about it this way. One of the big messages in Dead Rising is a criticism of mass consumerism. It's a criticism. It's not criticizing, capitalism. It's not criticizing meat eating. But what Dead Rising is criticizing is it's criticizing this mass consumerism that, caused the zombie outbreak. Just constantly buy. That's why the game takes place in a shopping mall. It's that big criticism of the mass consumerism. The shopping mall explains that perfectly. You're constantly bombarded with ads. And if people had just, taken what they needed, if they weren't just constantly pushed to keep buying. The government didn't need to do all this stuff, didn't need to do these experiments. People wouldn't have starved in America from less meat, but because the government tried to, create more meat just so they could make more money and sell that to the American consumer, it created this, this nightmare with the zombies. But Carlito being killed by Larry, who was a foreigner in the original, what I'll say about that is that actually was ironic, because Carlito hated Americans so much, but when you think about it, he was killed by a foreigner who was so obsessed with the mass consumerism of America. So, who was so into his work, who was so into being a butcher. He was so obsessed with just constantly selling meat, making meat. And this was a foreigner. So just think about it that way. Carlito, a guy who hated Americans and wanted to make the U.S. government pay, killed by a foreigner who was so obsessed with the mass consumerism in America. That's what was so ironic about that. He was killed by a foreigner that was obsessed with the mass consumerism in America. And making the guy an American who kills Carlito in the remake, I felt like kind of took away from that scene. I don't think it completely ruined that scene, but I think it kind of took away from that scene. So that's basically my thoughts on Larry. Is like I said, I'm not Chinese, I'm not Taiwanese, so I cannot say, if this, 100% of this doesn't offend me, because I don't know. I don't know how I would feel if I was Chinese or Taiwanese about Larry. But me personally, I never saw anything racist about Larry, and I would have seen, him the exact same way if he was, a big, scary white guy back in 2006. But I just think that the whole change with him was just unnecessary. He was I saw just a crazy, psychotic butcher that snapped, nothing more than that. And there's a controversy with this, because a lot of people are saying that he was changed also because of his last name, because he was Taiwanese, but apparently he has the same exact last name. But now it's believed more likely that he was changed not to offend China, primarily that. And Japan is right next to China, and people were accusing Capcom of having racist views against Chinese people, and that's why they made the character of Larry back in 2006. I don't think so. I don't think there's really any proof for that Capcom had any racist intentions by making Larry, but that is basically my thoughts on it. Okay, so now let's talk about the Errotica Censorship and how Kent's cutscene was actually changed. So in the original Dead Rising, you can take erotica pictures, and these are basically like, pictures that Frank can take that include like sexy poses of other characters. And the pictures that you could take is you had the drama, you had outtakes, horror, and brutality and erotica, but now erotica is gone. So one of those is gone in the game. And when you actually meet Kent for the first time. His cutscene is actually a little bit different in the remake. So I'll show you guys this. Kent actually shows Frank his one picture that he tells him is his sexiest shot, but that picture it does not exist in the remake. Instead, he just tells Frank his funniest shot. So take a look at this.
Well, it's in focus. And the composition's okay, I suppose. That ain't half bad. Okay, here comes the next one, Frankie. But first, feast your eyes on my work. Now this is my most emotionally moving shot.
This guy's a creep.
Now this is my sexiest shot. Okay. This is my most violent shot. Check it out. Okay, here's the deal, Frankie. You gotta go out there and take even better pictures than the ones I just showed you. You think you can handle that, huh? Yeah.
Well, it's in focus. And, the composition's okay, I suppose. That ain't half bad. Okay, here comes the next one, Frankie. But first, feast your eyes on my work. Now this is my most emotionally moving shot. Now this is my funniest shot. Okay. This is my most violent shot. Check it out. Okay, here's the deal, Frankie. You gotta go out there and take even better pictures than the ones I just showed you. You think you can handle that, huh?
Yeah.
So in the original, Kent actually wants Frank to take an erotica shot when he meets him next time. But in the remake, Kent actually wants Frank to take an outtake shot. In the original, the best erotica shot that you could take is, I remember it was when after Brad was shot and then Jesse was, sitting right next to him. When you took that picture, that basically completed, Kent's mission. And I personally think this was really unnecessary because Kent was a creep. That was the whole point of that character. He was a creep. He was a disturbed individual, and he wanted, Frank to go and take this erotica picture for him. And I think that by taking out that scene where he shows Frank his, sexiest shot, that also kind of ruined that scene in a way, because it was meant to show that Kent was a creep. That was the whole point of him. Because if you actually do his other mission, his final mission, and you arrive 5 minutes late, Kent actually takes Frank hostage, and it shows just how much of a creep he is.
Listen, Mr. West, I owe you an apology. Looks like you're a pro after all. If I would have known that, I'd have taken pictures like this from the start. Ha! How you like them apples, huh? You see, I think outside a box. And the best part is, I'm just getting started. I'm gonna tie you up nice and tight. Get the zombies all riled up. Famous photographer Frank West. Killed in the line of duty like a true hero. This'll be the greatest picture of my career. Maybe in the history of photography. This is gonna take me straight to the top. Yeah!
So basically, Capcom removing that erotica scene from Kent's mission, I thought it was dumb because, again, it was meant to show that Kent was a creep. That was like the whole point of that, is that Kent wanted Frank to go and take this Errotica picture. It was meant to show that Kent was a creep from the start. You had that, the game was basically hinting at that this guy was a creep, this guy was a bad person right from the start. But now, you know, they took that out. Again, you know, he's still a creep in the remake, but like I said, it was kind of implying early on that he was a creep. And as for the regular, you know, erotica pictures that Frank can take, I will say this, that they still have that Cheryl mission in the game. So if you actually save Cheryl, she's one of the survivors that got captured by the cult in the movie theater. She will actually call up Frank in the original and in the remake. You know, on day 3, she will want Frank to go and take a bunch of pictures of her, and she gives like sexy poses for Frank. And I'm actually surprised this made it in the remake. They took out the erotica pictures. They took out the that Kent scene where he's like tells Frank, "This is my sexiest shot." But then they actually have that scene where Frank is taking pictures of Cheryl when she's doing sexy poses. And when Frank actually takes those, you know, pictures, it just says no genre, where in the original it would just say erotica. So I don't know why they did this. You know, I really have no idea. You know, I don't know, you know, I'm not a woman, so I don't know if this was, you know, I cannot say whether this would, you know, offend me 100%. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it in the game at the start when the game came out in 2006, because it was just one of the features in the game. And the thing is that Frank at the start of Dead Rising was a bit of a scumbag. You know, that was the whole point of the characters. At the start, he was a bit of a scumbag. He became a much better human being near the end of the game, you know, when he tried to help Brad and Jesse. And at the start, he was only concerned about money. He was only concerned about being famous, but then he started saving people, and he just was more determined to get the truth out instead of becoming famous. But, you know, Frank was kind of a bit of a scummy character at the start, and, you know, having those erotica pictures in there, I guess kind of added more to Frank's character, too. He wasn't as bad as Kent, obviously, but he was a bit scummy at the start. So I don't know, you know, how I feel about the erotica. The erotica, I guess, maybe you could maybe more justify it that it would, to be taken out of the game more than the other things on this list here. But again, I don't know if it should have been taken out of the game because it was one of the core features in the original, but it was just removed here. So guys, on this part, I want to talk about the censorship that has no excuse. There is no reason this part of the game should be censored, and for me, I could have looked the other way on all the censorship in the game, but this, I could not look the other way on this. This is the worst censorship in the game. A lot of people think that the Larry censorship is the worst censorship in the game, but I disagree. I think the worst censorship in the game is the Cliff censorship, which you guys will see right here. So Cliff's entire dialogue has been censored. And for people who don't know who Cliff is that Vietnam veteran who suffered a massive PTSD episode after his granddaughter was killed by zombies. Now, take a listen to Cliff's dialogue in the original game, and make sure you keep an eye on 2 important words here, Viet Cong and communist. Make sure you listen to those words, Viet Cong and communist. And then I'll actually play the clip, the new clip. Take a look at that right here. Really creepy. Remember the first time that I played this as a kid. I had no idea what I just walked into.
Name and rank, soldier! You can't tell me, can you, fella?
This guy sounds like Tank Dempsey from
why.
Call of Duty.
It's because you're Viet Cong. I'm right. Aren't I? You are nothing but a filthy communist! You, son, are gonna tell me where the gorilla's hideout is. By the time I'm done beating information out of you, you are gonna be begging for death to come take you away. You. Over there. Here. Take this.
That looks like the family
My
from the
granddaughter. She was done in by those damn zombies. When I heard her scream,
I just lost it. Everything went white suddenly. The war, it wasn't over. Not for me. It never ended.
That's one of the few psychopaths that I feel bad for. Frank also seems to show remorse for him. He was a Vietnam veteran that went crazy after his granddaughter was killed by the zombies. Okay, so you heard how he called Frank Viet Cong, and he said he's a filthy communist. Well, take a look at this scene now in the remake now.
Name and rank, soldier!
You can't tell me. Can you, fella? Oh yeah, I know why. It's because you're a mole. I'm right. Aren't I? You
Are nothing but a filthy animal!
You, son, are gonna tell me where the guerrilla's hideout is. By the time I'm done beating information out of you, you are gonna be begging for death to come take you away. Damn enemy scum! You. Over there. Here. Take this. My granddaughter. She was done in by those damn zombies. When I heard her scream, I just lost it. Everything went white suddenly. The war, it wasn't over. Not for me. It never ended.
So now, in the remake, Cliff does not call Frank Viet Cong. Instead, he now calls Frank a mole, and instead of a filthy communist, he calls him a filthy animal. This really pissed me off. Now, for people that are confused, who are the Viet Cong? The Viet Cong were a underground resistance movement that operated in Vietnam. They traced their roots all the way back to the French Indochina War when they had resisted French colonialism. But the Viet Cong was a communist resistance group that operated primarily in South Vietnam during the Vietnam War. Now, most of them were from South Vietnam, some of them were from North Vietnam, and some of them were also from Cambodia. But these guys, I will say about the Viet Cong, these were some really, really bad guys. These guys were not freedom fighters, these guys were terrorists. This was a terrorist organization. And look, I'm not here to make excuses on, why the US was in Vietnam. That's not the purpose of this video. I know some people are going to try to put words in my mouth. I'm saying is, you can be totally against the Vietnam War, and you can be totally against the US being in Vietnam. That's not the issue here. That's not what I'm discussing. What I'm discussing here is what the Viet Cong themselves. So you could be totally against the war. You could be totally against the US being in the Vietnam War. I agree, it was an unnecessary war. We probably should not have been there also at the same time too. But on the other hand, if you look at the Viet Cong are not good people. So you could be totally against the US involvement in the Vietnam War, but if you think the Viet Cong are like some kind of freedom fighters, you're an idiot. The freedom fighters are never going to terrorize and mass murder their own people. It's not going to happen. And here's the thing. Wikipedia has an entire page that lists the years from 1960 to 1975, an entire list of Viet Cong and North Vietnamese atrocities. And you can find atrocities that the Viet Cong had been committing even before the US had gotten involved in the war, where they constantly attacked Buddhist temples, set Buddhist temples and churches on fires. They murdered Buddhist monks. They murdered priests. They attacked Catholic nuns. They even threw a grenade into a public area where people were watching a theater play. They killed numerous children. They bombed schools where there was children were playing, and they did this primarily because the kids from these schools were from the upper class, the higher class. The Viet Cong were communists. They hated anybody that was not working class, and they hated religion as well. The Viet Cong were completely against religion. They believed that religion was the enemy of the working class. And one of the worst things the Viet Cong did is they committed the Hue City massacre. So when the NVA, the North Vietnamese Army, and the Viet Cong took Hue City, what they did was they massacred thousands of people in Hue City. So anybody that they deemed to be a capitalist, anybody they deemed to support the government of South Vietnam, anybody that deemed to work with the Americans, they massacred them. Thousands of people were killed in the Hue City massacre. And this, you can also see this in Black Ops 1. So you remember that mission in Black Ops 1 when, Mason meets Reznov for the first time, but it's a hallucination again in the Defector? That is the Hue City massacre. That happened. So when you see, people just running through the hallways and the NVA troops just gunning them down, that mission in Black Ops 1, that was based on real events. That really happened. The Viet Cong were not good people. And about the Hue City massacre this is totally ignored in Vietnam. I have one of my viewers who's from Vietnam, and I actually asked him on the stream about this, and he said specifically that this is not talked about, this is ignored. So a lot of this stuff is censored. They pretend like none of this stuff happened. They only talk about the bad things the US did. They completely ignore all the crimes that the NVA did and the crimes the Viet Cong did. I'm not here to say that the US did not commit, crimes in Vietnam. You had the My Lai massacre, which is an absolute horrific event that the US had done in the Vietnam War. But the Viet Cong were really, really bad guys in general. They did torture. They tortured prisoners of war. If you were taken as a prisoner of war by the Viet Cong, you had almost no chance of survival. You had a better chance of survival with the North Vietnamese Army, even though they were brutal too. You had a better chance of surviving with the NVA than you did the Viet Cong. So the Viet Cong terrorized their own people. They tortured people. They literally attacked schools. They attacked religious groups, religious buildings. Like I said, no freedom fighter is ever going to attack their own people. And like I said, not here to justify the US being in the Vietnam War. That's a completely different topic. The only thing that I'm saying right here is that the Viet Cong were not good people. You could be against the U.S. being involved in the Vietnam War, but to think that the Viet Cong were somehow freedom fighters or they were good people, it's just absolute nonsense. These guys were terrorists. They did horrible things, and one of my Vietnamese viewers, he actually yesterday on my Red Dead livestream, he actually told me about another massacre which I didn't even know about. But in 1973, Viet Cong forces had basically bombed a school where they deemed the kids in the school the upper class, and so they murdered 30-something kids in the school. And then what they did was they blamed the attack on the US. So they bombed the school, killed a number of children, and then they blamed the US for it. And the fact that the Dead Rising, the reason I'm getting so pissed about this is because the Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster literally removes the Viet Cong from the game. Oh, you don't want to offend the Viet Cong. People who had done such horrific atrocities like this, murdered their own people, engaged in torture, literally violated all of the rules of war, hid within a civilian population, did so many bombings. You don't want to offend people like that, people that just did such horrible things. And also, you don't want to offend communists. They literally took out the word communist because now in the year 2024, apparently it's what all the cool kids are doing now these days. It's perfectly acceptable to be a communist. It's perfectly acceptable to follow an ideology that has killed over 100 million people. And the reason I take this also extremely personally as well is because my parents had fled communism from Poland, and that's why I'm pissed about this too. I'm pissed about this fact that they're somehow like justifying or they're removing, the fact that Frank was called a filthy communist. Like somehow communists are, good people, and it's perfectly acceptable to be a communist these days. So it destroyed my parents' country of Poland. It destroyed one of my friends that I talked to on PlayStation. It destroyed his family's country, Vietnam, where they had to flee. One of my viewers also, it destroyed his country. He's still in Vietnam, but he constantly criticizes the communists in Vietnam. But Vietnam today is not a democracy. It's pretty much still an authoritarian thing. It's not as bad as China, but it's still an authoritarian country. I went to school with kids where their parents were from Cuba, and communism has destroyed their parents' country. One of my good friends in real life, his parents are from South Korea, and communism destroyed their country, ripped their country in half, and started a war in their country. And so, literally, is you can go across the entire planet. 1/3 of almost all the countries on the planet were communist. And every single place that it's been, communism has been a disaster. Communism has led to poverty. Communism has led to mass murder. Over 100 million people dead. In this, horrible authoritarian ideology, and the fact that they're just removing this from the game. So I'm taking this a bit personally also because I'm Polish, and, my people had suffered under communism, my people had suffered under Soviet imperialism, and so I'm just a bit pissed about that. For me, that's just the worst thing is. A lot of people are saying that the Larry thing is the worst, but for me, this is personally the worst thing. The fact that they're just trying to appease communists, and this is also, I would say this is also primarily directed towards China too. They don't want the game to be banned in China, which I don't even know if the game is banned in China. They don't want to offend the Chinese Communist Party. It's just ridiculous. An ideology that's killed so many people. So many people have died. So many wars have been started because of communism. So much suffering, so much poverty, and the fact that they're just literally they're removing Viet Cong from the game, which is a terrorist organization that has committed atrocities against their own people, and literally removing the word filthy communist because they don't want to offend communists, because now these days apparently it's perfectly acceptable to be a communist. And I will also say they ruined Cliff's story. They ruined Cliff's story in the remake here, because when Cliff is dying and he basically says the war never ended for me. Now, you could kind of figure out that he's talking about the Vietnam War in the remake, but in the original, it was obvious. It was obvious he was talking about the Vietnam War. It was obvious he was a Vietnam War veteran. And so Cliff probably had PTSD fighting the Viet Cong. The Viet Cong he might have been a prisoner of war. They might have tortured him. They might have done horrible things to him. And so, literally, is him having that PTSD episode when his daughter got killed, his granddaughter got killed by the zombies, and, snapping and thinking that he was back in the Vietnam War and he was fighting the Viet Cong. That ruined his story in the remake. When they took that out, they took out the Viet Cong, and they took out the word filthy communist. Apparently, you don't want to offend communists these days, and you don't want to offend the Viet Cong also, a terrorist organization. But that's it. That's my thoughts on that. That really pissed me off, and that just really annoyed me. Like I said, is that I take this much more personally because my parents had suffered under communism, and so that just, for me, is the worst censorship in the game. It's just totally unacceptable. But guys, the censorship doesn't end here. It also continues into the trophies and the achievements as well. So this is Dead Rising Remaster. This, came out in 2016 on PS4. I played it. I have trophies in it. Now, some of these trophies I didn't unlock, but you can just see the names. And Zombie Genocider, that's the name of the trophy. Defeat at least 53,594 zombies. And now, let's take a look at what this exact same trophy is in the Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster. Look. Zombie Annihilator. Defeat 53,594 zombies. So they replaced Zombie Genocider with Zombie Annihilator, which, like I said, I don't understand it here. What's offensive about this? It's killing a bunch of zombies up here. It's probably that they had the word genocide in here, but it was referring to killing all the zombies. It wasn't referring to some kind of mass murder. But they changed this here. And then take a look at this right here. This is Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster as well. This is Dead Rising Remaster 2016. So this is the original. The original, look at this. The trophy is called Frank the Pimp. Simultaneously escort 8 female survivors. And then look at this. This is the Deluxe Remaster, the Grateful 8. Simultaneously escort female survivors, 8 female survivors. So it went from Frank the Pimp to the Grateful 8. That's just Frank the Pimp honestly sounds a lot better as a trophy than the Grateful Eight. And honestly, what's the big deal here? Is they took out the word pimp out of here? It was just a joke. That's what it was. It wasn't meant to offend anyone, but it's like this, oh my god, it's just this political correctness. This political correctness is disgusting. It just is. This is just ridiculous. And now to wrap up this video here, I'm gonna say this at the end. Is the Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster worth it? And I'm gonna give a controversial answer here, and I would say yes. While I'm not, I'm bringing up all of the ridiculous censorship in this game. I thought the game was enjoyable. I had fun. I did. And I will be honest with you guys, I like Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster more than the original. But the one thing that I just can't let go is I cannot let go this stupid censorship. If the game did not have this censorship, I would have given this game 10 out of 10. 100%. A+. No complaints whatsoever. Maybe my only gameplay complaint would be that we didn't have co-op in this game. They could have added that at least. But the original didn't have co-op also, to be fair. But, you know, they could have added it in the remaster, in the remake. But the censorship, I mean, come on, guys. Seriously, like, you're gonna change Frank the Pimp to the Grateful Eight. That's so dumb. And then the Larry censorship, and also the Errotica censorship, and then also the Viet Cong and the communist stuff. You're gonna remove that too. So, my final verdict on this game, what would I give the game? 8 out of 10. That's what I would give. And I'm taking off 2 whole points. Maybe I'm being too generous by only taking off 2 whole points. But I give the game an 8 out of 10. Like, I would have given the game a perfect 10 out of 10 if there was no censorship. Because the gameplay is so much better than in the original. Movement is better, gameplay is better, graphics are a massive improvement. You have health bars in the weapons. You know, Survivor AI has been greatly improved. The mall has been updated. A lot of the interiors of the mall are different. They look a lot better. And then also Infinite Mode has been, you know, upgraded with a save option in that. Soldiers have been added in Infinite Mode. Zombies also drop food in that as well. Now, you can fast forward time. There's, you know, an entire book on PP stickers. You know, the notebook has just been greatly updated. Every survivor has their favorite weapon and their favorite food. So, I would say, overall, in my opinion, the Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster is an improvement on the original. The graphics and the gameplay and everything is superior to the original. And I think a lot of people are also so much into nostalgia that they don't want to give the Deluxe Remaster a chance. But the AI alone makes it worth it. The AI in Dead Rising, the original, was just so stupid. It was so difficult to get the AI back to the safe room. They would constantly die, and it was so annoying getting all the survivors. In this one, it's still a challenge, but it's way better than what we had to deal with. So, overall, my summary here, gameplay, graphics, you know, features, a vast improvement over the original. Vast improvement. But the censorship, like I said, I'm not here to make excuses for the censorship. I think that it's stupid. I think that if you can look past the censorship, I think you will generally enjoy the game. I think Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster is the best way to play the game. Like I said, I enjoyed it a lot. And in this game, I don't know if I should give this game Game of the Year. I would have given this game Game of the Year, no problem, because every year on my channel I choose a game to be Game of the Year, and Dead Rising Deluxe Remaster would have been my Game of the Year, if not for the censorship. That's just the thing. It's just, I just am pissed about that. I think it was totally unnecessary that they had to do all that stuff. And I could have looked past all the censorship, I personally could have, but the communist and the Viet Cong one, that one I could not look past. That one just really pissed me off. So I could have ignored all the other censorship, but that one I just couldn't ignore. That one just really pissed me off and annoyed me. But let me know what you guys think down below. Overall, I think that if you see this game on sale, I would say give it a chance. I think it's a fun, enjoyable game, but it's just that censorship. It's just that's the only bad thing really in the game. That's the only complaint I have in the game. The game was, everything else was flawless, was great. There was really no glitches in this game, but just that censorship, oh man, it was just ridiculous. So thank you guys for watching. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I know this video came out kind of late, like 2 months after the game came out, but I've just been busy with so many things. I still have those 2 Dead Rising lore videos that I'm going to make. I know one of my viewers, Owen, if you're watching this video, I still promise that I'm going to make the Dead Rising lore videos. I know you've been asking for that, so just be patient with me sometime in December. But thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys on the next one. Take care, everyone. Have a wonderful day, guys.